Good idea for a party that increasingly values diversity to turn to white men to lead it.
Right, that seeking help is not something that makes you weak, it's something that makes you strong. We rarely see politicians do this. We rarely.
Nothing to this.
Yeah.
He's, God damn it.
You're still whining. Stop whining and just make an argument.
Dude, I'll smack your fat ass.
So you're going to attack.
On computers, talking to guys on webcams from all around the world. That's how I first made my money. And at one point, I had 75 women in 4 locations working for me, which was stressful and the wrong way to do it. I ended up removing my army and going to special forces of around 15 people, 15 girls. And me and my brother made a lot of money doing that. But the PhD course, the Pimping Host degree, was teaching people how I managed females in those scenarios, how I controlled their emotions, how I convinced them to work and give me most of their money, how I convinced them to share me with other women, why they obeyed me. So it was never so much about out there picking up girls. It was actually something else. It was more about the psychology of things. And I'm saying, look, I'm a theorist, here's the theory.
We'll add to the statistic of middle-aged men who make up a bulk of those who commit suicide here in the U.S.
Mark Boyle, has been looking into why. And Mark, a lot of this has to do with that tough guy mentality I think a lot of us are guilty of.
That's right, we are. And the stigma comes along with men getting mental health treatment. It's something that suicide prevention experts are trying very hard to change here.
What I want to talk about is why is this happening? Why are men having such a hard time? And I really don't think that a lot of people are talking about it. So the first one is I want to talk about role models. I feel like, you know, when our parents were kids, right? I'm 42, so when my father was a kid, he had people to look up to. Uncles, grandfather. There was a lot of different people around, and family was very tight-knit. And I noticed that in the age that we're talking about now, in 2025, and especially in the last 20 years, that tight-knit family has been pulled apart for many different reasons. Could be drugs, could be alcohol. There's all kinds of different reasons why. And I think that support system has kind of fallen apart, right? Also, most of my generation grew up in a single parent household. And a lot of times the father was, you know, I lived with my father and my mother, but my father was working all the time and didn't really get a lot didn't get a lot of time to really sit down and talk to me about, you know, being a man and dating and all those other things, because he was trying to keep up with bills and he was trying to keep up with what was going on in his own life. And so inside of all of this mess, this chaos of like the family and the breakup of the nuclear family and all that other stuff, has been like in this vacuum are people like me or you know, in my generation, people like me who haven't really had anybody to look up to. And so when you don't have anybody to look up to, and especially this next generation is pretty bad too. They don't have a lot of people to look up to. Look, you've got in a normal household where you've got a mother and a father who live in the same household, right? The mother is probably working 10 to 12 hour shifts a day. And then when she comes home, the father's leaving to go to work. And most times teenagers are left to their own vices, right? And even kids as young as 11 and 12 are left to their own vices, right? And so to take the place of what would normally be having conversations with your kids and family time and dinner and all that other stuff, you know, when the mother didn't have to work and the whole family could be home. Now you have a situation where they are picking up a controller to play video games. And a lot of times they're either looking up to these video games. I know it sounds crazy, but they look up to these video games as kind of like something to look up to, something to look forward to, right? And movies and pornography and all of these extra things that are really didn't play a big role 30, 40 years ago when you had someone to look up to, right? Like, yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. When I was a kid, I remember going out to Florida to go visit my grandparents, right? And my favorite uncle drove a Jeep, and it was a Jeep with a V8 in it. And he was the coolest uncle ever, man. And I remember he would wake me up. He would wake me up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he had already talked to my parents about taking me to the beach, and he would take me to the beach and we would just hang out, man. We would talk. I'd go swim in the ocean. I'd come back and hang out with my uncle. My uncle would buy me hot dogs or whatever. And we just had fun, you know? I was probably eight or 9, somewhere in there. But it wasn't just that I had like my dad and maybe some other people in the neighborhood, because you had a tighter community back then. But then I had an uncle I could go hang out with. And when I went to go down to Florida to go visit, I could talk to my grandpa. And, you know, there was always something going on with family. And I feel like because of not only the political climate that we're in, but also because of the way that the family has been ripped apart and the way that the fabric of society is being ripped apart, I feel like that tight-knit family is just withering away, you know? You've got, like me, I work 12 hours a day. And I have my kids for 4 days at the end of the week. Out of that 4 days, they go to school for 2. And I maybe, if I'm lucky, get to see them for 48 hours, maybe a little less on the weekends when I have time with them. Because all I'm doing is working all the time. And in that little bit of time, I try to make it as important as possible, right? Have good conversations, go out, take my son out, have one-on-one time with him, have one-on-one time with my other daughter. And I try to make it quality time, even though it's not a lot of time, right? So I feel like a lot of the conversations that our parents would have had when they were younger with the older generations, right? I feel like those conversations don't really happen anymore. And a lot of us fathers, not to say that we're like failing our sons or anything, but we're so busy, and a lot of us are single fathers trying to carry all this weight, and we're trying to make sure that we take care of our kids and have these important conversations with them. That's a lot to keep up with, right? So you've got the societal and economic woes that are playing into a lot of this, right? And then you have a generation, or maybe even 2, of kids, especially boys and even girls too. This is not to leave girls out of this situation either. But you've got a generation of kids who don't have anybody to look up to. So what do? They get online and they see people like Andrew Tate, or they see people like Wes Watson, or they see people like I don't know. There's a whole bunch of them. I can't even name them all. But you see these guys, and these guys are like, they worship themselves. They're narcissistic. They only care about what they can get out of people. They're not there to help you. These people don't have any blood ties to you. They're not a father, an uncle. They don't care about any of that. They don't care about your everyday life. They don't care about you being depressed. They don't care about the fact that you're 17, you can't find a girlfriend because girls just seem to be lost in their own world because they're going through the same thing. You know, there used to be grandmothers and mothers and great grandmothers to sit down and talk to that would teach you etiquette, that would teach a woman, you know, hey, this is how you behave yourself. This is how you carry yourself. You don't take your clothes off on the internet. You don't start an OF account. You don't watch porn. It's not good for you. Those were things that were passed down from our great grandparents or our grandparents down to the younger generation, and it's not there anymore. It's not happening anymore. And it's due to many different factors. You've got feminism, you've got, you know, the Marxist thing, you've got all of it. It all plays a factor. The economic status, the economic stuff that we're going through now, inflation is terrible. I mean, we're like probably 6 times, houses are 6 times the price of what they used to be only 30 or 40 years ago. I mean, it's crazy. How expensive everything is just nuts. And you have to work extra time, or you have to pick up another job, or you have to try to find a way to save money, or go give plasma, or find these other things to do to try to make money to take care of your family. So when you start to put economic pressure on people, and you start to push feminism down everybody's throat, women feel like they're not getting enough out of their relationship, so they file for divorce and they jump from one man to another. The men are left to be broke, having to pay child support for something that they didn't even do. It's all a mess, and it causes a huge issue, right? So men's mental health and the stuff that is going on with our young men, not just young men, this suicide thing and men's mental health goes from goes from teenagers all the way up into the 40s. And then it skips probably 50, 60, and then hits 70s again, right? So it's just very frustrating because I see it all the time, right? It'll be the same people that talk about how men are abusive and disgusting, and how we refuse to accept feminism, and it's those same people that will turn around and then they'll say, well, men just need mental health help, and why is the suicide rate going up? It's almost like you're being gaslit. These are the same people that are using the talking points of how we're not accepting feminism, or how we're, pigs and chauvinists, and all men are rapists, and white men are terrible, blah, 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 right? And then it's those same ones that'll jump back on there and be, what is going on with men today? It's 2025 and so many men are taking their life. I wonder why. You gaslight people for years, and then you go back and you talk about, or you ask questions that you already know the answer to. So I wanted to talk about that, because then you look at the manosphere, right? Because I was one of those people who, got out of a relationship and things were very, very tough. I was a single father trying to take care of my kids off of a job that's really not paying me enough, right? And then you also have to pay child support. Okay, so you have all these things stacked up on your back as a father. And very rare do mothers have to pay child support, right? And so you got all this stuff stacked up on you. You're trying to deal with a divorce. You're trying to deal with leftover bills from the divorce and all these other things that are going on. And then on top of that, you are trying to find not a leader, but you're trying to find some leadership, I guess, right? Or you're trying to find a compass and find a way to guide yourself out of whatever you're going through after a divorce. And so you stumble across the manosphere. I did the same thing. I stumbled across it. The problem is with the manosphere is that, one, most of the people you're going to run into, these influencers, bodybuilders, weightlifters, things like that, not knocking it, because I do the same thing. I bodybuild, I weightlift, I go to the gym, I'm into that whole thing too. The problem is that it's very shallow. There's nothing deeper than that. There's no deeper thought to it. Like, how do you work on your mind, and how do you work on your personality? How do you work on your character? How do you become a better person? How do you stay balanced even when things are super stressful and things feel like they're falling apart and you're not able to pay your bills, or something's going on with your kids, your son, your daughter, you're having to deal with the mother of your kids, just all of there's nobody out there talking about that. You may run across a podcaster every once in a while that will talk about those kinds of things. But for the most part, it's always me. I'll charge you $20,000 if you give me a call, and I'll help you with your character and to be strong and bodybuild. And that's not what these boys and what these men need to learn. That's not. Why are we going in that direction? And so I took it upon myself, after going through the manosphere and looking at all this stuff, I took it upon myself to say, what am I doing? Who am I following? Like, these people, there's no substance to most of these people. I'm not saying all. There's a couple of good ones out there. Better Bachelor is one of them that I like a lot. He's very balanced, and he is fair, I think, in most of the videos that I've seen. Maybe he's not perfect, but none of us are, right? So I feel like these young boys are running to the manosphere, and it's just causing, they're not finding what they should be finding. You should be working on on who you are as a person, right? Yes, the outside's important. You should be strong. You should be able to take care of yourself. You should be able to do all of those things. But also, what about your character? What about who you are as a person? What about your morals and your moral compass and the things that matter in life? And I don't hear most of these podcasters and most of these guys, these manosphere guys, I don't hear them talking about that. I'll give you one example, and then after that, I'm gonna go ahead and end this because I'm coming up on 15 minutes. Let's just take Andrew Tate, okay? The one thing that I cannot stand about Andrew Tate is that he was talking about how to be a man and how to do this and how to get your money up and go to the gym and how to be stoic and all those things, right? And on the surface, it looked great, right? It looked like he's really like guiding kids or guiding these young boys to how to conduct themselves, right? And then he admits, I'm not talking about what the news talked about. I'm talking about him, because I watched some of his videos. He admits that he was basically turning these women into tricks. He was turning them into online whores and getting them and tricking them into working for him and having phone, you know what, with men on the phone and taking the money that they make from it. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you think you are. I don't care what kind of man you think he is. That's not a man to me. I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. That's ridiculous. It's disgusting, right? How are you going to teach young men to be men while also extorting women? Okay. So going all the way back full circle to what I was talking about, there's a fabric in society, right? I think all of us are responsible for this fabric, men and women. We both have to keep that fabric together, right? If we are ripping that fabric apart, right? If men start using women to make money off of them, whether that is their choice or not, if we're using them, right? If we're extorting women, or if women are extorting us through feminism and all that other stuff, we are both working together to tear apart the very fabric of our society and any kind of nuclear family or marriage thoughts of marriage becoming a thing. We're tearing all that apart completely. The family, kids. So how can he complain about what the world looks like and how the family's being torn apart, or all the things that are happening in Europe, when you are part of it? You are part of what is tearing apart the fabric. You're using women and extorting them to make money off of them, but then turning around and getting online and complaining about what the world looks like and where things are going. You can't do that. And so to me, what that does, just this, him as an example, what that does is you're telling these young men that you can complain and bitch about all the things that are going on around you and how the world's falling apart, but you are part of the problem, and you're allowed to be part of the problem, and nobody can question you about it, because as soon as somebody says, hey, you are contributing to what you're complaining about, he's going to say, well, Andrew Tate does it. Why does it matter? Why? Who cares? This is why I said that character, morals, and all of those things are important. And none of the manosphere that I know of as a whole, right, are not really teaching that. They're not. It's all about, oh, women go on OF. Okay, what about the women that don't go on OF? They're not all on there. There's other women that don't want anything to do with OF. Why are we not bringing more focus to the women that don't do that? What about the ones that reject that? I don't hear anybody talking about that. You know, it's always the focus on like the worst bottom of the barrel women and the worst bottom of the barrel men. What about the ones that aren't like that? Why are we running over the good people in society that could actually help fix this? And we're only focusing on all the negative, right? What do you think that's doing when these boys pick up a phone and they're like, how do I be a man, right? Because dad's not home. They don't have anybody to look up to, right? Now they pick up a phone, they're looking at manosphere stuff. What is that telling your kids? I don't let my son go on YouTube and look any of that kind of stuff up. I'm sitting right there when he gets on YouTube. Same with my daughters too. Because I already know what's on there. It's a septic tank. It's disgusting. It's toxic. It's not going to do anything to help society rebuild itself. We should be encouraging women who are not on OnlyFans. We should be encouraging men who reject this whole outward appearance of, I need to look like a bodybuilder, but you don't have nothing up here. What do you have up here? Do you read books? Do you talk? Do you think about your morals? Do you think about your personality? Do you think about how you treat people around you? Do you think about your family? Do you think about your mother and your father and your sister? Do you think about when you make a mistake or you do something, how that reflects on who you are as a person and how it reflects on your family? Because those are the things that matter. And I feel like we are not magnifying on the right things. We are not bringing the right things to the forefront so that we can try to better society. So I feel like the manosphere is burning. It's like a nuclear fire. It's over, right? I feel like it's kind of like ignited itself. And I feel like feminism is the same way, right? So now we're in uncharted waters. Now what do? Right? To me, the only way is to come full circle back to the feminine role and the male role. What's wrong with that? I taught my daughters the feminine role, and I'm teaching my son the male role. You're the protector. You're the strong one. You're the one that needs to learn how to fight and the one that needs to learn how to build things. And that is the things that us as fathers need to be teaching our kids. We should be having these conversations with our kids, with our son and our daughters, because whatever comes after this, right, is on us. We're the ones that are going to control where society goes. You as a parent, whether this is a woman or a man listening to this, you are where society's going to go. If you're teaching your kids to just take whatever and settle for whatever and okie doke and just do whatever you want, who cares? And you're not teaching them to live by rules and to be a good person and to have some kind of pride and morals and character, where do you think society's going to go? We have a very, very important job, especially us as men. So I wanted to bring it full circle, and I wanted to talk about the men's mental health thing because I feel like it's such a large, broad conversation that it would take probably months if I was to break it down into different shows. So I hope that helps, and I hope that maybe makes people think about what is going on. And maybe we as parents, if you're watching this and you're a parent and you have children, have those conversations, man. Talk about the world. Talk about, learning how to do a fighting sport. Talk about reading books. I was reading Socrates and Critias with my son the other day. And we were reading about when Socrates was in prison and the conversation that was happening between him and Critias. I think it's Critias. Don't come after me. Oh, Kronos. I'm sorry. It's Socrates and Kronos. And we were reading that in Plato's book, right? Those kinds of things. That gets him to think about moral character and who you are as a person. If we don't get that, if we don't get our kids thinking about that early, the only person that we can blame is ourselves. That's it. And I don't hear anybody in the manosphere talking about stuff like this. So if you want to know what's going on with men's mental health, that's what's happening. There you go. We need to talk about deeper set issues, character, morals, and where we're going as a society, even with our own children, because they're the future. So if we can't have those conversations, it's over. So I hope you guys like what I'm doing here. Thank you for coming by. This is the Cordials Tribe. Please hit like, subscribe, and share with as many people as you can. It helps me get into the algorithm, and I'll see you guys on the next one.